If somebody said to me, name a movie that gets polar opposite reviews, the first thing that comes to mind is Tusk from 2014, because people either love this movie because it is so weird and so wild and so off the wall, or they hate it with every fibre of their being and wish that it didn't exist in the first place. So we're going to find out where I fall in this, because I tend to really like weird, off-the-wall horror comedies. So this is not my first time into the world of the weird and wild horror comedy. The last thing that I watched on my channel that falls into this category was Dead Sushi, which is insane. So let's see how this shapes up. But if you don't know anything about Tusk from 2014, let me quickly fill you in. Tusk from 2015 is a comedy body horror. When podcaster Walrus travels to Canada to interview someone, he winds up meeting a strange man named Hal, who has many stories to tell about his past during the interview. Walrus wakes up the next day finding Hal isn't the person he thought he was, as Hal plans to surgically and mentally turn Walrus into a walrus. If you're new here, I go by Hordes, and if you're not new, welcome back. I talk about horror movies here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays, but as always, when it comes to watching movies that I have never seen before, I am now going to go and watch Tusk from 2014 off camera, so that way if you too decide that you want to watch this movie about a man that likes walruses just a little bit too much, nothing will be spoilt for you, because nobody wants to watch a movie that you've just watched somebody else watch from start to finish, because you'll know exactly what's going to happen, and I keep it spoiler free here on my channel.
What the hell happened?
Yeah, my head hurts a little bit after this one. I do love that Tusk claims to be an actual real event when what it's actually inspired by was a fake advert online for a room to rent, where somebody would be required to dress like a walrus to do household tasks, which I don't know which is weirder to think about, somebody dressed as a walrus in a mascot suit, or this plot actually happening to someone.
Whatever goes, Walrus.
Nothing against Justin Long, but Walrus is why people hate podcasters. They are up there with people in MLMs for being super annoying and oversharing. And if you met somebody that was even remotely similar to Howard Howe, you would run a mile before any of the crazy stuff starts happening. And he's like, let me turn you into my new human pet. Like, the guy is like chatting bubbles and is a whole different crazy level of insane. And then you add Johnny Depp into this movie as well, and what the actual hell is his character in this movie? Bold statement, I have seen weirder horror movies than Tusk, and that is saying something. Obviously, this is not going to be a plot for everybody, but my issue in this is not with the plot, my issue is with the dialogue, because I have never come across anybody that talks like this. Now, I know when Kevin Smith came up with this movie and when he wrote it, the man was smoking a lot of the devil's lettuce, and oh boy is it obvious. Half of the plot I was actually interested in, and that is the part that goes on with Howard and with Walrus. The whole, let me turn you into my human walrus pet thing because I've got a weird obsession with walruses and something's gonna happen at the end of the movie, which I won't spoil. Loved that part, that was great, that's where all the body horror part comes into it. Don't have any issues with that side of the plot. And then you give me the side plot with Teddy and Allison and Johnny Depp and his fake nose and his beret with his slightly questionable Canadian accent, and I genuinely couldn't care less about the side plot. It just felt like it was slowing down the pacing and stopping me from actually getting back to the main plot, which was the part that I actually cared about. The side plot, it's just too goofy for me, and when watching a movie, you do not want my number one thought to be, wow, I hate Johnny Depp's fake nose in this. The humour just doesn't hit for me in this movie, and horror comedies, the comedy is always going to be hit or miss, but I did find that I spent a lot of this movie asking myself the same question over and over again, and that is, do Americans and Canadians genuinely hate each other to the degree that this movie seems to think that they do? Because I swear, most of the humour was just Canadians or Americans throwing verbal punches at each other, being like, ha ha ha, aren't we better than the other? Like, I am neither Canadian nor American, so yes, this is me actually asking the question. I do like the body horror in this though. All the sections where you see Howard performing his operations on Wallace and slowly transforming him into a walrus, like, all of that is great. Love the gory little bits. Love the whole transformation sequence that then builds up to that, like, big reveal of the full walrus suit. And then there's that little twist when you find out what is at the bottom of Wallace's pool, which I was not expecting, to be honest, but also I absolutely would have expected this from Howard. I didn't know what to expect when going into Tusk, and in all honesty, I don't think that I could have expected what happened in Tusk, because I can't think of a single movie that I can compare this to, because, oh boy, it's certainly one on its own, this one. Now, I can totally see both sides of the argument for this movie as to why some people love this movie and some people hate this movie, and for me personally, I just don't think that this is a movie for me, and that is based on my own personal taste. Like, I have seen weirder movies than Tusk, and I think that, as weird as this is gonna sound, I was expecting this movie to be the weirdest thing that I have ever seen, and it wasn't.
Not even close.
In the end, I am actually going to give Tusk from 2014 a 2 out of 5 stars, and I will be the first to say, just because the humour in this movie doesn't work for me, doesn't mean that it won't work for somebody else, because a big part of Tusk is its humour, as well as how you react to its body horror. And I like off-the-wall insanity levels of horror comedies, and Tusk just wasn't what I was expecting it to be. And when you pair it with the fact that I didn't find it funny, I'm probably not going to rewatch this one again. So there you have it, my initial thoughts and my review for my first time watching Tusk from 2014. If you've also seen this movie, I would love to know what your thoughts and opinions are down in the comment section down below. Are you going to skip this one, or is this one that you would actually be interested in watching? If so, I will leave a link to justwatch.com in my description bar, so that way you can see where it is streaming in your country. If you would like to know every single horror movie that I watch though, not just the ones that I talk about here on YouTube, you can also find me over on Instagram and Letterboxd, or maybe even stick around and join the Horde here on YouTube. I will be back though on Friday with an actual insane off-the-wall horror comedy from Japan, which I can only describe it as if the anime prison school had a baseball team. So until next time, bye.